Page 12, I whistle a happy tune. I guess we know the mood of this piece. At the top of the page, they're talking about phrasing and phrases and different definitions. You can look it up. To me, a phrase is a musical sentence. You see, we talk in sentences. If you're reading a book, they're in sentences. A sentence is kind of a thought. You've got long sentences and short sentences, and well, in music, we get the same thing, except instead of words, they're notes. So you group of notes. It's a musical thought. It's a sentence. And a lot of times you can hear it. You don't even have to have any markings or anything. You just know where the sentence is. Here in Happy Tune. You can probably consider that one long sentence, or you can break it up into shorter sentences. So it's a line. That's one, and then another one. That's one, and then another one. And then another one. See, they're not all the same length. They don't have to be. It's just a musical thought, and that's what we call a phrase. And that's about as clear as I can get it, and from now it gets complicated. So good luck, sit down, relax, try and keep up, because this is just something. You see, in a lot of music there's no indication to actually mark what the phrase is. It's up to you to listen to the music and try and sort of figure it out. In some pieces, a lot of beginner books, when they introduce phrasing, they'll put that slur line across them, because it can also be used to indicate a phrase. So you might have the slur line to tell you what the phrase is. In this piece, we don't have a slur line to tell us what the phrase is. And that just adds to the complication. Because that slur line can indicate a slur. Where you connect the notes, it can indicate a phrase. And you don't have to connect the notes in a phrase. So you can actually have a slur line over a phrase and staccatos in there also. And you're thinking, well, what do they want? Do they want me to connect it, or do they want staccatos? And the point is, the slur line is only pointing out the phrase. You still do the staccatos. That's where it gets confusing, because that curved line is used for so many different things. I can think of right offhand about 4 different things it's used for, and it's just confusing sometimes to figure out what's going on. Here, the curved line is only being used for slurs in this piece. They don't tell you what the phrases are. But if there's words to it, you can usually follow the sentences or the phrases in the words. So you go up to a comma or a semicolon or a period or something, and that will group the words together, and you can group the music together. So at the beginning, whenever I feel afraid, now there's a comma, so that's a sentence. It's not really a full sentence, but it's a musical thought. It's a phrase. And then I hold my head up high, well, erect. Hold your head somewhere, I don't know. So you can follow the words here and find out where the phrases are. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis on music. Sometimes you get a slur, a phrase mark. Sometimes you get nothing, you have to figure it out. Sometimes you get words, that helps you figure it out. Sometimes they'll put in the phrase marks and the words, and they don't coincide. Good luck figuring that one out. But that's sort of my spiel on phrasing. Just would have to take it on a case-by-case basis. I tend to use the word slur and phrase interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. It's a little confusing. So that just adds to the adventure, I'm sure. Let's talk this happy tune thingy, now that I put you in the mood for it. Cut time, or 2/2 time. So 2 beats in a measure, and a half note gets a count. Well, that means a quarter note gets half a count. So we're going 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and in the left hand. Well, when I tackle a piece, a brand new piece, and it's in cut time, I always put it in 4/4 time in my head. I just pretend it's in 4/4 time, because it makes the counting easier. That way a quarter note gets a count. That way I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and the 8th note gets half a count. And I don't have to go 1 and 2 and. Forget that. So I'm going to talk about this piece as though it's in 4/4 time, and then once we cover it, I'll put it back in cut time, because we need to feel it in cut time. But let's talk about it in 4/4 time at first. It's got one flat, we're in the key of F major, all the B's are flatted, sort of. We have a pickup beat. We're coming in 4/4 time, we're coming in on beat 4. In 2/2 time, we're coming in on the end of 2. Good luck figuring out. So you're starting out here. Don't forget the B flat. So it's 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and play it all connected right now. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now thumb, just lift up and move. 1, 2, rest. Fourth finger on the F. See, this is just an F chord in extended position. And that's the fingering, it's the F. 1, now they're saying 2 again. I don't like that. I don't like using the same finger if I don't have to. So I'm going to recommend, go ahead and use 3. I want to connect everything. Because I can just reach up with a little finger. There. I don't need to use 2 again. It's one of the reasons I play everything legato when I'm figuring it out, is so it helps me with the fingering. I can come up with a fingering that allows me to play it all connected. It tends to work better once I get the piece learned. So I'm not moving around as much. So on the second line, second measure, use a 3 on that. And at the end of the line, it's 4. And now you come up during the rest, 3. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Oh, and this fun. Second finger then. 3, and fourth line down. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. On 4, there's an 8th rest. You rest, and then and. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. Now when I get repeated notes like this, there's nothing wrong with using the same finger, it's fine. I tend to use alternate fingers because it just helps me, especially when I get nervous. Sometimes when I'm using the same finger and I get nervous, it doesn't always play because I'm shaking too bad. So I found if I can use like a 1 and 3, just alternate 1 and 3. Same with the F's up above. Especially if it's fast, it's easier to use 2 fingers. So I'll leave that between you and your teacher, but I like 1 and 3. And as to which note you use 1 on or 3 on is up to you. Experiment. So sometimes I use 3 back to back and sometimes I don't. And then go on 4, and then for the coda, the last line you're here, and then reach up, and I recommend a 1-3. I want to connect the melody here. Now the articulation will allow us to do the fingering in the book, but again I want to play everything connected, and I finger it so I can play it connected. So I use 1 and 3. So I can connect it. If you have really little hands, you can't do that. You may have a problem because you need to be able to do that, I hope. So try and do that if you can. 1 and 3. And then that's tied forever. So left hand is fairly simple, quarter notes. They're saying 2. Well, that's because we're coming up the 4th finger here. But a 1 works too. I can do 1. Because in the last measure of that line, I can still scrunch up and put 4th finger on that, even with thumb there. And you do that. The second measure on page 13 is. And then the second line is here, 5-2. So I'm just reaching down. And then 1-4 or 1-5, you got a quarter rest before and after. You got time to move. If you want to do 5-1, that's fine, or whatever. Third line down. They say 4-1 or 4-2 if you want. I mean, both notes are black, so it doesn't matter. You can be up here. And then here, 1 or 2, either one for the third measure. Next line is 4. 5, and then here, it's B natural there. And then here, they're saying 2 for the B flat. See, the flat sign's in parentheses. It's another courtesy sign. I talked about this on the previous video. It's just letting you know, by the way, this is a flat. And if you can't do this, your hand's not big enough, you have to use thumb. So it's, that's fine. If that's what you gotta do, it's what you gotta do. Put the hands together. I'm still playing everything connected. Here, second line, second measure on page 13. Here, lift up on the G. The left hand lift up on the G. There. 1, 2. And then at the end of the line, that last F in the left hand is by itself. Now in the third line, look out. You have all these F's in the right hand. But in the third measure, in the left hand, that is an A natural. They didn't give you a courtesy sign here. I don't know why. I think they should have, but they didn't. That is an A natural, not an A flat. You know what I'm trying to say? Good. Okay. Again, third line. And that C at the end of the fourth line is by itself. Okay? And then the coda is just like so, I hope. Then once you get a handle on that, get rid of the hesitations or any wrong notes or whatever you're having problems with. And then we can add this articulation. It's a nice light wrist staccato here. And the tenuto line, just to hang on to it for the full, linger on it. The left hand is staccato all the way through. And that's kind of tricky, for me at least, playing one legato and the other staccato. Now you notice in the last measure at page 12, that C has a staccato note, so it's short. So watch out there. And that's staccato. But here, then that's staccato. Now, this part is a contrast to that, so there's very little staccato in here. It's pretty much connected. Now this is staccato. Now, fourth line down is staccato tenuto. Hang on to that. And that staccato. 1, 2, 3, 4. The coda is connect this. And at the end, both hands come up together. You kind of get a handle on that and then put in the dynamics. That's to the melody. Moderately soft. Left hand needs to be background. Keep it out of the way. End of the second line there on page 11, you come up a little bit to moderately loud. And the fourth line you get a crescendo, so you're going to gradually go up to loud, but don't get loud to the third measure. So stay pretty much at medium loud. Right there is loud in the right hand. The left hand's background. And come back down to soft, that note, moderately soft. And for the coda, you're starting the coda moderately soft. And then you go up to loud. Here. The left hand's maybe moderately loud to moderately soft. And you stay there, you don't get softer or nothing. Then we add the speed. Well, the speed, we got to put it back in cut time. We want to feel this in 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. So put it back in 2, feel it in 2. Could be a slow 2. If you're going to sing it, how fast would you sing it? Remember, it's a happy song, but it's not overly happy. Don't get carried away with the happiness. Now, roadmap wise, this is interesting. They have a DS-Al coda on page 13 at the end of the 4th line down, DS-Al coda. They tell you what it means, it's Italian. DS means go back to the sign. Well, now you get to go hunting for a sign. Where's the sign at? It happens to be over at bottom of page 12 at the beginning of the first full measure. Otherwise, if they wanted you to go back to the beginning, they'd put a DC. That means go to the beginning. DS, you go to the sign, and the sign could be anywhere. Well, so once you finish the 4th line there, go immediately back to this. So it's 1, 2. So the beat just continues on. You just carry on where you were. And all coda means you go to the coda sign and then jump to the coda. Well, the coda sign is the circle with the crosshairs, and sometimes they'll put coda and sometimes they don't. Doesn't matter. You need a circle with the crosshairs. And that's at the end of the first measure on page 13, 2nd line, first measure. You see it above the staff, the crosshairs thingy. So you're going to play up to that and immediately jump to the coda. So it's and do the coda, and that's the road map to it. I think there's an error in the music. It's minor, but it bugs me. And that is at the end of the coda. They give you the double bars. It should be a thin and thick bar line. The thin and thick bar line is the symbol for the end of a piece. And generally, it doesn't have to be at the end, because you can end a piece wherever. It could have a fine to end it wherever. But it should still be a thin and thick bar line there. Because when I first saw this and I saw that double bars there, and I think, wait a minute, that's not the end. I turned the page to expect more, and there isn't more, it's a different piece. So I think that's an error. Play this with you very, very slowly, and I'm going to do it in 4/4 time. We'll give the quarter note a beat again. I was just checking notes and rhythms. I'm not going to do dynamics, but we will do the DS-Al coda thingy. So we'll play the whole thing. I'll give us 3 counts, 3 quarter note counts, because we come in on beat 4 if it's in 4/4 time. 1, ready, go, and. to the coda. 1, 2.